Hi everyone, this is Julie Bruns. Welcome to the Peace and Possibilities podcast. I want you to thrive and be happy, peaceful, and content, no matter where you are on your journey. This podcast shares stories that will show you how it can be done, no matter what your circumstances. You'll be inspired and come away with a new spark of an idea. Never forget, anything is possible. New episodes are released every Wednesday. Subscribe, rate us, and leave us a review. This helps others find our content and get happier sooner. To possibility and beyond. Welcome everyone to this episode of the Peace and Possibilities podcast. My guest this week is Christy Whitman. And Christy, hi Christy, thanks for Christy and I haven't met, but I am familiar with her work. I came across your work, Christy. This is the beginning of 2021 right now. At the end of 2020, I'm always doing research and listening to podcasts every day and reading and getting on, not YouTube as much, but I came across your work through something I was reading. It wasn't on YouTube. It was an accidental, you know how that goes. You find what you're supposed to be, what you're looking for, what you're supposed to find. Yeah. And I clicked on something, and normally my husband's like the type of person who is on YouTube. That's where he gets all his information. That's where he learns all of that. Not me. I'm always on podcasts and reading. And that particular day, I clicked on something for YouTube for you, and I couldn't stop watching on your channel. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so cool. I think maybe now that I'm thinking about it, I heard you on a podcast, and then I went to learn more about you and found your YouTube channel. And what I was most intrigued about is your journey initially when you, I think it was about 20 years ago, you were on one path and you're like, wait a minute, this is not what I want. And then you totally switched gears. And after you switched gears, like all this stuff started opening up for you and becoming easier, and you just aligned to what you wanted to do, which has kind of been my journey too. So that's why I was so intrigued by it. And then I saw some of your workshops and your energy, and I thought it was so interesting. And I was like, I need to learn more about her. And obviously right away, I could tell that you love what you did.
Yes.
The prerequisite to being on this podcast. So I was like, I want to find out more about how she figured that out, because a lot of people, right, will take turns as they're trying to figure out what they want to do in life and their careers. And some people will resist the turn and resist the like, oh, I think I'll go down this direction because they studied to be one thing and now all that time and money is wasted, that kind of thing.
Yes.
So I want to encourage people that even if they, it took them longer than they wanted it to take, they can still do it. And I think you're a shining example of that. So thanks for being here. And let's talk about what you do and how you found your path. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, it wasn't like right out of the gate, you studied and you're like, this is what I want to do. And then you started it right away. So tell me.
I knew from like a very young age that I wanted to go to college. I wanted to make my own money. That was something that was really a wound, if you will, about my mom, is that I saw my mom and dad's relationship, and my mom and I were encouraging my sister at a young age. I was young. I think I was about 7 years old, encouraging her to leave the marriage. And she said to me, I can't. What am I going to do? I don't have any money. And that was like a vow I made to myself, that I'm going to make my own money. I'm not going to ever, depend on a man, so to speak, to not have my own money. And so I was really clear at an early age. I was always kind of searching for what could I do? What could I have as a career? And I just knew like early on that I wanted to be in sales and marketing, and that I wanted to market consumable products. And so that was the path. I went to college to get a business degree, and that kind of was a whole big, split. I wasn't doing well in the business college. Met a woman that talked to me about the liberal arts college and communication. And I started going and taking classes there, and I started thriving and doing really well, which is so perfect for what I do now and all the classes. So I graduated, with a BS from Arizona State University and in organizational communication. And this led me to live in Chicago. And I got a job at a liquor and wine company, and was doing really well. As a matter of fact, was climbing the corporate ladder, and, got actually recruited from one of our suppliers. And I had a lot of responsibility at a young age, living in a big city, had a lot of fun. I got to go to restaurants and bars and meet the owners and meet the food and beverage managers. And, as a young woman, and get it basically going to all these different events and drinking and, and I would say I would eat my way through Chicago because my girlfriend, I would call her up and go, hey, I have to go to this restaurant tonight and meet the managers. And we would go, eat wine and dine and everything on the company. But at the end of the day, I just felt really just empty. Like, okay, I've manifested, didn't have that language back then. I've created, I've accomplished all the things that I wanted to do. And yet I feel unfulfilled. And that's really daunting when you reach, you think something's going to make you happy and you're told that these are the things that will fulfill you in life. And you do these things, you accomplish these things, and you're like, okay, that's not getting it. So what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, that's where I pivoted and I moved from Chicago to Northern California. And that's when I first met my meditation teacher. And that's when she said to me the words that will forever have changed my life. And this is 25 years ago. She said, you create your own reality. And when she said that to me, it was like something huge opened up in me. And then, of course, my mind went into, well, how? And she started telling me that our thoughts create our reality. We're either repelling things from us or attracting things to us. And I then knew that that was true. And then it was like my mind kicked in, how? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this was the first time in my life where I became the observer of my thoughts and realized that no matter how much I accomplished, no matter how much I achieved, no matter how much money I made, no matter how, small my butt was, whatever it was, I was never going to be happy because I was so critical and judgmental inside of my own head. And that's when I really started having a different relationship with my awareness of myself and my thoughts and my emotions, and, stopped suppressing myself so much and started actually listening to myself. And this really took me on a journey for about 5 years where I became a pharmaceutical rep. Again, I was still in the line of selling and marketing pharmaceutical or consumable products, right? And I remember about 5 years in, and I literally created everything that I wanted. I met and married a really wonderful, nice guy, whereas I normally attracted, the bad boys. I had health in my body. I was thin, fit, tighter than I've ever been, my ideal weight. Had money in the bank, had lived in my dream home. I mean, all these wonderful things were going on. It's a great paying job. And yet again, here I felt unfulfilled. And I felt that as I went out to my job, it drained me instead of, it energized me. Right. And so I had a moment of like, okay, knowing what I know now about energy and about the universal laws, what is it that I'm missing? And for me, it was a feeling of being on purpose and having passion. Because for me, at the end of the day, what did it really matter if I sold more medication? As a matter of fact, I'm the kind of person that will take peppermint essential oils and rub them on my temples if I have a headache rather than take an aspirin. So here I was, trying to get doctors to prescribe more medications when I myself felt very disconnected from what I was selling. And so I started to cultivate what I knew is that all energy creates forms and that all forms are created obviously from energy. And I wasn't feeling passionate. I wasn't feeling on purpose. And so in order to actually create a career where I needed to cultivate that energy within me. So I started to meditate and contemplate and visualize and think about feeling on purpose and feeling passionate. I didn't know what the form of it looked like, but I would feel my way into that. And it was a very short period of time that later, when I was meditating at night, all of a sudden I got this vision of a book, which was my first book called Perfect Pictures, and went to bed that night, 1:05 in the morning. I was having a voice talking to me, which I understood it was not me. It wasn't like I was having these thoughts. This voice was just talking to me. And I started listening to the voice going, wow, this is good stuff. So I got up and started writing down. And when I took out my journal and my pen, my hand just became independent of my own consciousness. It was just like, scribing. And this information just downloaded through me. And I was like, wow. I mean, it was pages and pages. I was too tired to even read it. So I went back to bed. And 7 nights in a row, this was happening. And so I had just met an author that had published books. So I reached out to her and I said, how do you get a book published? And so she told me the steps. I took those steps and found myself with the book, and my friends and family all bought the book, which none of them were the target audience for this book. So I started speaking in spiritual bookstores and New Thought churches and places like this. And so it was like, here, now I was an author. I was starting to do speaking. And while I was doing these workshops, people started asking me to coach them. Mm-hmm. And I had it's 20 years ago, no frame of reference for coaching. They would ask me a coach, and I was like, what do you mean? Like a cheerleading coach, like a football coach? I don't understand. I didn't know there was, I was like, what, life coach? Who would hire that? Like, what is that for?
Yeah.
And so I said, no, just call me on the phone and I'll walk you through it. So I started taking them through what I knew and what I was applying in my life, and their life started changing, and their life started like manifesting the things that they've been struggling with for a really long time. And so I started looking into and pursuing this thing called life coaching. And about 6 years later, about 5 years later, actually, I started my own business. I quit corporate America, quit a full-time, really good paying job. I was a sales training manager for a biotech company, and I went full-time in my own coaching business. And it's been 15 years now.
Okay. I have lots of comments. So when people are, I totally get what you're saying. And the whole creating, it's interesting because we never think about creating our own reality in the sense that you and I are talking about it with energy. But everyone, when you finish a degree, when you get a good job, when you get a nice place, when you have all these accomplishments in your career, you create all of that yourself. But everyone else thinks, oh no, I just followed these steps and now I have what I was supposed to have because I did all these things. Instead of thinking it as you created all of that. And then when you create it and it's not what you want, you're like, why isn't I what I want? Well, you didn't create exactly what you really wanted because you weren't listening. And I find it interesting. I meditate every day as well. I want you to, if you wouldn't mind just telling everyone how that opened up, like you started asking questions and meditating, and then you started getting these, like you wake up in the middle of the night and you're writing a book. That happened to me actually several years ago too. I tell my husband, I'm like, in my dream, I'm writing a book. I'm actually writing the words in a book, and I just would have these at random. They weren't real specific like yours were. It was just like, there's a picture of me writing a book. So that means I should be writing one eventually or something. I'm actually getting it published in a couple of weeks, my first one.
Congratulations.
Yeah, so it's fun. I mean, that was several years ago. So it was like little by little, not as obvious as yours. But my point is, when you ask for the guidance or you meditate and you ask questions or you let things in, it's amazing how quickly they come to you. People aren't trained to do it. I know I never was. I remember being 20, like asking, which is why I wrote the book I wrote, like no one had answers. There was, teachers, there were teachers in college and stuff, but there weren't people going like, hey, Julie, listen to your intuition. Hey, Julie, when you go to bed at night, ask for guidance. And there wasn't any of that, even though it was always happening for people. You just didn't talk about it. I think it's so important for people to go inside, because we always look outside. Like you were saying, you're like, I don't have what I want. I'm not feeling good. I'm not feeling aligned. Why? It's like, and then when she started thinking about it for yourself, you got the answers. So it's just so important. It's so underrated, and it's so important.
It's everything. Most people go outside in order to feel, but you have to feel in order to create from the outside. We need to create from the inside out instead of the outside in.
Yep.
And it is the inside that creates the outside, is which most people don't realize that.
Yes, it's such a big message. So now you've been coaching and have this business, and you have a YouTube channel and these workshops. So for 15 years, huh?
Doing it 20 years, but full-time 15. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So as you were learning all of this and you made the switches. So, and I wanted to show you, like, if you can see my window, this is Chicago. That's a merchandise mart. I'm in Chicago.
Oh my gosh, you're in Chicago. I love it.
So I live like just 2 blocks from merchandise mart. When you were talking about, so obviously, you got a job, then you got another job. You're like, okay, I'm reading, I'm learning, all of that, 5 years, life coaching, all of this. As you were doing it along the way, you knew there was something better for you. How are you staying peaceful and content along the way? How are you staying like sane about what you were doing? Because you're taking risks too. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to learn this program. I'm going to do this thing no one's doing, which is life coaching.
Right. Well, it's interesting because I'll just take you back to like the very last job that I had, which really is, I can tell you exactly how I applied it. I knew I didn't want to be doing that anymore. Right. And I was now for most of my life a salesperson. And now I got recruited to be a sales training manager, which I was in the corporate office in Philadelphia from 8 to 5 every day. Whereas before I'd work maybe a few hours as a pharmaceutical rep, right? And so now I was there, had to be there by 8, couldn't leave before 5. So I would literally have to, and I knew I didn't want to do this forever or full time. I knew that I wanted to become a coach. So at night and on weekends, I was investing in my business. I was coaching people. I was doing speaking engagements. I would travel to New York City and do workshops. I mean, I was grinding while I was doing this. And because I was so moved and so passionate and filled with purpose when I was coaching. And so that's what fueled me. But what I had to do deliberately is I had to appreciate what I had in the now and get excited for what was coming. Because what I understand about the law of sufficiency and abundance is if we're looking at any type of contrasting situation or what we don't want, maybe a job that we're not thrilled with or a career that we're not thrilled with, and we're looking at it and we're complaining about it and we're comparing what we want with what we don't have, we're in lack, and we cannot create from lack what we want. It's a completely totally different vibration. If you think of it as like a spectrum, on one side is lack, and lack always feels bad, and on the other side spectrum is abundance. Abundance always feels good. Well, that tipping point into abundance is satisfaction. So I would deliberately, I mean, this was a conscious, deliberate thing that every time I got in my car in the morning and I was driving, I even did it before. I was like getting ready in the morning, thinking of all the positive aspects about my now moment, that I made really good money, that I could invest in my business. I got 2 weeks vacation. I couldn't believe that. So that I could take that time to go to different conferences, so I could do different trainings. I had nights and weekends free so that I could do my coaching and go to these things. I would list out all of the positive aspects. And then when I was driving into work, I would be grateful for the beautiful drive that I had to work. I would be grateful for the radio station that I love to listen to with the radio personality, crack me up every morning. So I would listen to him, and the music that was coming on. I would constantly be searching out, filtering things that I could be satisfied and happy with in my present moment, knowing and getting excited, visualizing, dreaming about what it would be like to have my coaching business full time. And so I never let myself go into lack. Even I wrote about this in my book, Quantum Success. I had a boss, we called him Eagle. He was always hovering over everybody. And he would even do sneaky stuff where he would come into my office and just kind of check stuff out. And I had a friend that was literally across the way, and she's like, Eagle was in your office. And I'm like, what is he doing? It's creepy. It was really creepy. So that was fuel, because I'm like, you know what? When I'm my own boss, I won't have to deal with him. I will be able to make my own hours. I was listing all the positive aspects about what I was moving into. I could work with who I want to work with. I could work with the clients I want to work with the team I want to work with. I would just get any contrasting situation. Like when my friend would tell me, ooh, he was in your office sneaking around. I'm like, when I have my own business, I'm going to be so free, right? When I have my own business, I'm going to work from home.
Yeah, it's so important. I have a book in my book. One of the chapters is on gratitude. One's on manifesting as well, but gratitude, possibilities is another one, because like you said, and I'm loving that you're talking about this because it's so important and it's not taught to, we have sons that are older, 18 and 23 right now, but I've been teaching this forever. You cannot, I love what you said about you cannot create in a position of lack. You can't be creative, you can't be positive, any of those things. But
yes,
gratitude is so hard when you're in a place where you don't want to be, but it's so important because like you said, you're driving into work, and I have this example in my car. So maybe you can't right now, we can't go places we want to go. We can't go to concerts and sporting events, whatever. But do you have a choice in what you listen to every day? Yes. Can you turn on your phone and listen to any podcast you want? Can you turn on music that you love? Yes, all of those things are in your power, and you can be grateful for all of them while you're trying to find the other thing you want to find. But yeah, if you just are constantly thinking about everything that's sucky or whatever about your job, and then you go there, you have that vibration, it's low, you
Yes.
attract more of it, what you focus on expands, all of those things. And then if you're not excited about creating something and changing your vibration, like you said, you can't get to those things you want to create because you're like sitting in that, whether it's self-pity or just negativity or whatever. It sounds so, people, when I talk to people about it, it's like, it sounds simple. Yeah, but I can't have this. It's like, but you're never going to have what you want if you're only focusing on all the things you don't have.
Yeah.
And so, but it's definitely a practice, right? You can't just do it one time. You couldn't just get in your car one day at the beginning of the week, think about it, and then not think about it like that again. You have to do it every day. And some people don't have the patience for it, or they don't think they're going to be able to create what they want that way.
Consistency is absolutely key because it's all vibration. And so what happens is if you're going in one direction, then you go in the other direction, now you're splitting your energy. You want to create all of your momentum of energy to go in one direction, because that, it's like having a water hose that you want to water a garden. If you've got all these holes in the hose, you're not going to get that perfect flow that's going to feed that's going to water that garden. It's going to go off in all these different directions. And that's what happens with our energy field when we're this. I have a new book coming out called The Desire Factor. It's literally coming out in a couple of months. And it's all about that. It's like complete first thing in order to create whatever you desire is we have to be in alignment. Because if we're not in alignment, if our words or our thoughts or our beliefs or our emotions are taking us in an opposite direction, we're split. And that's why most people don't create what they want. You have to be in alignment. And, you said something, Julie, that really made me think is that, I created this program. It's a free 30-day program. It's called Watch Your Words, because people would ask me all the time, well, how do you start this process? And when pandemic started, when people were in lockdown, I heard everybody from celebrities to athletes to my next door neighbor to my kid say, I miss. Right. And I even caught myself a couple of times going, oh God, I miss getting a pedicure.
Mm-hmm.
I miss going out for dinner. And when we say words that are rooted in lack, like miss, we feel bad.
Mm-hmm.
But when we shift it, and only we have the choice to do that, instead, like I remember one day I was like, God, I miss going on a date with my husband. I wait, no. I look forward to going on a date with my husband. What happens is you open up your energy field, and now you get to be creative, because from that, I'm looking for, where would we go?
Mm-hmm.
When the restaurants open up, what is that first restaurant I want to go to? So now I'm being creative. And then it became, hey, hun, do we want to go out with another couple, or we want to go out just ourselves? Right. And then I even took it to, what am I going to wear? Just getting like creative and fun with it. So now I was really looking forward to going to restaurants. Right.
And you're
And so
smiling and you're open. Like you said, your body's open, your mind is open, you're smiling, you're excited, you're sitting up straighter, all of those things, because you're talking about what you're looking forward to instead of like, I miss, which is then you contract and then you're like, you move forward and all of that. Yeah. So important. So powerful. So,
it is. It's just, it sounds so simple, but even my son during the lockdown, he was the first lockdown. He was just saying, I miss going to school. And I said, what do you appreciate about school? And he's like, I appreciate seeing the teachers, and I appreciate being with my friends, and I appreciate having recess. And, now his energy, just by talking about what he appreciated, wasn't in the, I miss going to school. It's just so different.
It is so different. I love it. I love your analogy about the water hose too. It's a great analogy for kids and for adults, to say like it's all of this is so less powerful, each hole or each empty, wherever it's going, and then put it all into one place and imagine how much more powerful and forward thinking. That's an awesome analogy. I love that.
Thank you.
So tell me, what advice would you have for someone that is searching for a meaningful career? I mean, I know it's hard because you're not going to fast track someone to have all the lessons at 25. Like, all right, you graduated. You can just do what we're doing, which is creating a life we love, 20 years later. No, there is work obviously involved, and you have to make sacrifices and commit to things. But if you were to say, like to your son and to people that are just graduating school, or even people that are trying to make a career shift at 40, and they're trying to find a career that they really feel purposeful in and aligned to and happy about, what would you say to those people?
Well, I would say first get clear on what you want. Really focus on your attention on what you do want. And then really think about why you want it.
Mm.
Because a lot of times we think, oh, I want this because I think my mom wants me to do that. Or I want this because that'll bring me money. Or I want this because, and we need to really sit with ourselves and get to a deeper, not just allow the personality part of us answer the question, but the broader, more, wider perspective, the non-physical part of us, the spiritual part of us to come into the forefront, because that's the energy part of us. And so when we start asking ourselves why we want something, now that starts moving our energy, because I want to feel like I'm on purpose. I want to feel I'm making a contribution, right? I want to be a doctor. Why? Because my mom wanted me to be one. Well, there's no depth there, right? Because I could make a lot of money. There's no depth there. Well, why would you really want to be a doctor? It's a lot of school. Why would you go to that, all that schooling? Because I really want to make a difference in someone's lives. Well, there's your why. That's going to be the thing that carries you through those challenging times. That's going to be the thing that gets you up when you're tired. That's going to be the thing that when you've, had a bad score on a test, that you go, okay, I'm going to pick myself up because there's something that's bigger than me that's driving me forward. And the third thing I would say to ask yourself is, what do you want? Why do you want it? And then how do you want to feel? Because we've already talked about it. Most people feel if I make money, then I'll feel.
Mm-hmm.
If I get this accomplishment, then I'm going to feel. And it has to be the opposite way, because everything first is energy and then form follows. And we think it's form and then I'll feel, but it's not. I can't tell you. I mean, I remember for years, I wanted to be, I've always just wanted to do the best that I could do at anything. So when I became an author, I wanted to be a New York Times bestselling author. And did all the strategies and everything that I could, and sold as many books and did as many media, things that I could. And when I became a best-selling author, a New York Times best-selling author, it was like, oh, nothing changed.
Oh.
I don't know if I thought a parade was going to go through my house, or, I don't know what I actually thought was going to happen. But I thought that was the echelon. That's in this industry, as far as being an author, that's it. Okay. Well, I have the title, but what happened? It's like, I didn't feel any different. And the funny thing is, my kids were a year and a half and 3 years old when I got the call that my book hit the New York Times. And I reached down to them and was like, oh, Mommy's a New York Times bestselling author. And they're looking at me like,
just play with me, Mom.
yeah, right. Okay. Like, they didn't love me anymore. Like, nothing changed. And so because I had said like, ooh, that happens, then this is going to happen, it was a disappointing kind of thing. And what we have to understand is that we want what we want because we think we're going to feel a certain way when we get there. So what do you want? Why do you want? How do you want to feel? If it's because you want to feel on purpose and you want to feel passionate, feel that first, because then that you'll be attracting from that place. If you want to feel successful, if you want to feel secure, if you want to feel free, whatever it is that you're wanting to feel, if you cultivate those feelings on a consistent basis, like the hose, right? Really aligning with that feeling, then the forms must come around it. You still have to take action. We're physical beings. We have to take physical action. You can't just sit around and feel purpose, right? Perfect example. I was feeling purpose and passion. I was meditating on it. I got the book. Well, I needed to take the action of actually writing the book, editing the book, finding a publisher for the book, submitting the book, doing all the action steps that I did, going out and speaking on the book. So it's inner and outer energy. It's, inner work, outer work. Combining both of them, it's like putting a supercharger, super booster in your automobile.
I love that, a super booster. Would you say too, or you remember reading this somewhere about the feeling, like when you're asking people that question, like, how do you want to feel? I want to be a doctor. How do you want to feel once you're a doctor? Because it really is about that. Once you ask that question and you get clear on the feeling that you want to have because of it, your options might change. You may have more, you may have less, or you're going to get clearer on it because it's not because you're going for a feeling. You're not going for, like you said, the New York Times bestselling accomplishment you wanted to achieve was about feeling something. Like you want to see that on a thing because it means your book is in more people's hands. More people know about you. More people you can help. All of those other things. Again, very important questions to be teaching people. I wish there were courses like this in high school, because even in middle school, because this is where it needs to be. This is like where the seeds need to start being sown. I just wish that so much, but it's like, okay, then we can create other things so that people can get it a little bit earlier, if not later, but not as early as we want them to get. Okay, so finally, my last question, what do you wish, is there anything you wish you'd learned earlier in your life or career?
You know, it would be, I'm fortunate enough to say that I learned this in my early 20s. I mean, I was 25 when I started learning about law of attraction. And so I feel very fortunate, because I know I have clients that come to me in their 60s and they're like, oh my God, I wish I would have known this back then, before I made all those mistakes and before I lived most of my life. And, so I feel very fortunate that I learned this when I did. And so I don't think I would do anything different. I definitely know that all of it was a progression leading me to where I am. And I wouldn't look back and change any of it, because it was all teaching me something. It was all such a gift to help me to get more clear on the things I didn't want and be able to move in the direction of what I did want. So I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, then you wouldn't have all the wisdom and insight that you have now if you hadn't learned what you did in the order you learned it in. I know I wish I had learned about the creating what you want, like you create your own reality. Instead, I was always taught you just work hard and then you'll have everything you want.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Right. No.
There's lots of people that work super, super hard and never get anywhere near financially successful or free or any of those things. And then there's people that don't work very hard at all and have lots and lots of stuff, success, whatever it is. I just thought I'll just put my nose down and work hard, and everything will take care of itself. And it's like, no, it's so much, your mind is so much more powerful than your actual actions and work effort. You have to take action, but if you're thinking all the wrong things and you're taking all the action in the world, it does not matter how many hours you work.
My dad is a perfect example. He retired at 86. He is still the hardest working person that I have ever known. He worked 6 days a week. As I was growing up, he had his own business. I mean, I've never met anybody that worked harder than him, but his mindset, he is such a pessimist. So, I believe in law of attraction. He believed in Murphy's law. And you know how some people have in their office like successories and all these like empowering things. He had literally, if things are going to go wrong, they will. And, all these negative, things. And I remember working for him, reading these going, that doesn't feel good. Like that's horrible. Right. And so he had this mindset that he expected clients not to pay him, and they didn't. He expected to have to make, he was a mechanical engineer, to have to make all these different changes and not get paid for the extra changes. He expected the worst and he created the worst. He worked harder than anybody.
He expected the struggle.
Yeah, he expected the struggle. Everything's still to him to this day. Everything's, everything, breathing's a struggle. So it's like everything is a struggle. And he's always finding something to fight with, to complain about, to be in a place of drama. And as much as I know, and I'd love to help him, I've even had him say, Dad, repeat after me, all is well. All is, he's 80, he's 88. It's not changing, right? He's not changing. But, could you imagine if he had this perspective with the work ethic that he had, he'd be so much more farther along.
All you have to do is look for people like that to prove what we were just talking about. I'll just tell a quick funny story about like my husband. We're driving somewhere, we're parking. He's like, I'm going to get a crappy spot. And like you pull into I tell this story, you pull into the parking lot and you're like, I see, I got, or you get in the longest line possible at the grocery store every single time, because you walk up and you're like, I'm going to get in the longest line. I'm going to sit here, I'm going to wait. And all these lines are going to open up and it's not going to be the one I'm in. And with the spot, I'm like, I never, ever think about it. And I just remember years ago, he looked at me and he said, are you trying to tell me that if I think I'm going to get a parking spot easier, I will? It can't be that simple. I'm like, that's exactly what I'm saying. I'm like, because I never drive into a parking lot and think, I'm going to get a bad spot. I always drive in and think someone's going to pull out and I'm going to get a great spot. And I always do. I never have to park at the end unless I say I want to park at the end so I can get some more steps in or whatever it is. And I just remember him looking at me like, that can't be, that's crazy. like, no, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
And the more people that know this, the sooner, the better, because then we can go create all the things we want and all the things we want to do to help people and make the world a better place sooner, which is the whole reason I have this podcast.
Yeah.
So.
And it's not just for parking spots, it's for everything in life,
Yes.
And what we think, some people think, oh, well, that applies for parking spots. I can get parking spots all day long. But when it comes to harder things, well, it's the fact that we're saying it's a harder thing, or it's a bigger thing, or it's a bigger goal or a bigger desire. It's like, it's the same process that creates the parking spot right in front during the middle of Christmas shopping, right? Then finding the love of your life, or finding that perfect house to live in, or getting that puppy, or having a baby, or, creating a really successful business, or increasing your business, increasing your profits, increasing your clients, increasing your income. It doesn't matter what the desire is. It's the same process, but we have to align with it.
Yeah. I when I was younger, I used to always think, finding a job that I really loved would be super hard, but I will work hard and I will get degrees. I have a master's degree, a bachelor's degree, all that. And I will just work really hard, and I'll love my work because I'm going to work really hard to do it, but it's going to be tough for me to find something I really, really love. So it took me years and years until I created it, which is what I'm doing now. I actually had to create it myself. I create my own reality. But the thing I knew I never needed to work, the thing I just knew in my bones that was going to be easy for me was finding a great partner, companion, and that was the easiest thing. I always found great people to date. I found great relationships. I was never one of those girls who was complaining about how her boyfriends were treating her. And my husband came into my life. I was 20, 21 years old. We've been married almost 25 years. But people will say, like, what's the secret? I'm like, I just knew that it would happen. It wasn't I didn't work at it. Maybe I was working at it doing these other things, but it was more of a belief, a really deep down belief. I don't know where it came from or why, but that's what I had. And that was the easiest thing for me to create. But it's
beliefs are everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain to people about that. If it's a new concept, it's like, you can't just hear it one time and get it.
Right.
Keep hearing it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for all of your wisdom and insight, Christy. It was so nice talking to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being with you, Julie.
So if people want to work with you, do you still do one-on-one coaching? I know you have workshops, you have a book coming out. Like, what's the easiest way for people to find out more about what you do?
The easiest way is to go to my website, ChristyWhitman.com. I also have the DesireFactor.com. That's my latest book coming out. I'm on Instagram, Christy Whitman 1, Facebook Live or Facebook. I'm a Christy Whitman International. YouTube channel, I have Christy Whitman. So there's lots of places that you can connect with me.
Awesome. Are you doing any cool workshops do you do any virtual ones? Are you planning to do any big ones when everything clears up? And
most of my business has been online. I used to do a business workshop that I stopped doing a couple of years ago. So everything I'm doing now is online. So yeah, I do a lot of virtual healing events, and I do monthly meditations that are live. I'm in the process of doing a Vice Freedom program for the month of January, where we're live every single day together, releasing their vices. And so there's lots of variety. Yeah, lots of varieties of things that I do.
Cool. Well, I can't wait for people to get more familiar with your work, and
thank you.
I can't wait to read your new book too.
Thank you. You'll love it. It's awesome. Cool. So excited.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for listening. If you love this content, please rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts or whichever platform you found us on. You can get all my social media links in the description below. Help us keep the momentum going so that every person can live their lives happily, doing work they love.